I was a realtor, and I was in a RE/MAX office in Orem, and I would stand up. Realtors like to have office meetings. I'd stand up every Tuesday morning, and they'd say, what are wants and needs? At the end of the meeting, I'd stand up and say, I'm an investing realtor, and I'm looking for investing deals. I have apartments, I have property management, I have buyers, I have sellers. Who has an investment deal? And no one ever really said anything to me. Well, a broker who was, gosh, he was probably 50 plus years old at that time. And I only say his age because he should have had enough wisdom to do what it was that I did. The broker had this little house listed right here. And he said to me, hey, Mike, you need to put this house right here under contract, and it's a great investment deal. And I said, well, tell me about it. He goes, it's a little 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's an old home. It's on a corner lot. And I said, well, what's unique about it? Does it need a fix up? And he goes, yeah, I could use a fix up. It's been on the market for 4 months. It wasn't a fast time or a slow time. It's a good market, but not great. And I said, well, why hasn't it sold? And he told me what he thought. And I said, well, what's the investment? I really don't want to do fixer-uppers. That's not interesting to me. I'm looking for something else. And he goes, well, the interesting thing about this is the corner on the lot. It's a house on a corner. And the lot is big enough that you could take and subdivide the back lot off. And I said, oh. He goes, yeah, so you could subdivide the back lot off. It already has the land. And then you could sell the lot separately and then sell the house. And I go, oh, now we're talking. So at that point, I asked him the dumbest question I ever asked, which was what? Why didn't you do it? What was the question, the dumb question I asked? If this is such a good deal, why aren't you doing it? And he goes, what does that mean? And I go, well, you have it listed. You got a 6% commission. So you could buy it below market and it hasn't sold, so you could get a discount and the 6% commission. Why aren't you doing this? You live in Spanish Fork. He was in the office with me in Orem, but he and his wife lived here in Spanish Fork. I said, you're a Spanish Fork guy. Why aren't you doing it? And the minute it came out of my mouth, I looked and felt like what? One of you guys, right? I'm like, oh, dang, man. Did I really just say that? Oh, my gosh. You know, maybe he's going to go home and think about doing it now. And I said, you know what, John? His name was John. I said, you know what, John, I'm so sorry. That was dumb. And by the way, he answered the question before I said that. What did he say? So if this is such a good deal, why don't you buy it? What did he say? What was his answer? Oh, this answer never left my mind. He said, it's not my kind of thing.
Not making money.
And I was like, and that's when I immediately snapped back into reality and said, you know, John, I'm going to go take a look at it. John thought I could make $15,000. He was sure I could buy this house, subdivide the lot, sell this lot, the single family lot, to a builder, and I'd have to put in the curb gutter sidewalk, and I had to tie the asphalt in down here, down to the end of this lot right here. You see that orange cone over there? That's where the lot ended. And so I had to put in the infrastructure here. And I said, you know what, John, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna go talk to the city. So I got in my car, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I raced down here before it got 5 o'clock. Went in, the city planner happened to be available. And I said to him, hey, I got a piece of property. I want to show you where it's at. He pulled up the zoning map. I said it's in this quadrant right here. It's a corner house, big backyard. The listing agent told me, that's the thing you never want to start a sentence with. Never go to the city planner and say, the listing agent told me. How does the city planner take that? It's like, this guy's, what did he say, Mike? Tell me what he said. So I said, the listing agent told me that I had a big enough lot back there to subdivide a house lot. And he goes, well, let's take a look. So he pulls up the zoning codes and ordinances, something I'd never learned how to do or read or interpret. And he said, over there, yes, you do have room for a lot over there. And I said, okay, how do I know? I want to go home and study this. I want to learn this. And he said, look, here's the code, here's the zones, here's the uses, here's the ordinances and the restrictions that you have to abide by to put in a home. And I said, here's the uses, here's their minimum required lot size. And I go, what does that mean? He goes, well, if you do a single family home, you have to have at least 8,000 square feet. And I said, what are the other choices? And he goes, at 10,000 square feet, you can do a set of twin homes. At 12,000 square feet, you can do a duplex. So don't have to be owner occupied on both sides. At 14,000 square feet, you can do a fourplex, which I knew because later when I went over there, this deal came before that, the 2 fourplexes and 2 duplexes. So I said, so I can subdivide this, and you're telling me I can put a lot in? I said, and you'll help me out? And I said, I'm new, but I'm gonna do everything you tell me to do. And he goes, yes. And I go, well, before I go, and this was a impactful moment for me, I said to him, so I can put a lot there? And he goes, yes. And I said, is that the highest and best use? And I don't know why I asked that, because he didn't speak like that. That was a term that I learned in real estate school, and I'd only been out of school for like 2 or 3 years. So I said, is this the highest and best use? And he goes, no, it's not. And I go, oh, okay, what's the highest and best use? And he goes, well, if you keep 8,000 square feet for the front lot, you could leave 10,000 for the back lot. Instead of a house, you could put a set of twin homes. So a duplex would require 12,000. You could put a set of twin homes. And I'm like, hot dang! Because I was selling for all these builders, and they were always looking for twin home lots, especially the smaller guys that couldn't take down a subdivision. So I'm like, I'm in. I called John on the way home. Had one of the first Motorola cell phones. I called John. I said, I'm in. We're doing this. I'm writing you an offer. Can you meet at the office? What time would we be there in the morning? So I got in there. We wrote an offer on the property, got it under contract. It was listed for $113. I paid $108 for it. $108,000 for that house, including this lot right here. Put it under contract, went into the city, started the whole process, had a plat, a subdivision, a site plan, and all of that done in 71 days. First attempt. First attempt. Now, interestingly, that's kind of a bragging thing, but not really. And the reason is what? Cities were a lot more streamlined back then. They've become a lot more political, and the processes are a little bit slower these days. So while it was quick, I bothered this guy. I lived right over the freeway here. And I'd come in almost every morning or night. I'd start at the city or end at the city. So I was there constantly. And the other beautiful thing that he learned about me was whatever he told me to do. Listen carefully to this. You're interrupted by that car there. Sorry about that. Listen carefully to this next piece. I did exactly what he told me to do. I did exactly what he told me to do, and that is a skill most of you do not possess. Whatever he said to do, I believed him and I did it. And I was a success immediately for that. So many of you guys want to interpret things, you want to guess things. I literally ask in my office all the time, can you get me this information for this lot? And do they come back with that? No, they come back with something else. Why? Because in their brain, they interpreted what? Well, I think it would make more sense if I brought him this. Well, I didn't want that, and I didn't ask for it. Now we got to go through what? Well, let me tell you what I asked you for again. Here's why that information doesn't matter. This is what I'm looking for. Go grab it, and I'll show you why this information mattered. Guys, one of the most supreme talents you can possess is to be obedient. Most of what you're trying to do, there are plans and examples, I should say, all over. Do you know you could still pull this up today on the county and see the plat? You could pull up the original plat that I recorded here. And you have access to it today, this many years later. I mean, it's 2025. This was 29 years ago I did this deal right here. And you could pull up, and you could put in a grammar request at the city, and you could see every document. You could see my signatures on it. It's in front of you. It's available to you. If you'll just look, if you'll just make an effort. So John said I could make $15,000. Should we go through the math? I didn't make $15,000. First thing was I got a 3% commission on $108,000, which wasn't big, but $3,000 was a lot of money back then. I know that's nothing to you, but back then in the 90s, I was rich, man. I bought a gold chain. No, I'm kidding. So we made $3,000 as the buyer's agent on the home. I subbed this off, sold this lot for $52,000. $52,000. Less the improvements across here, but then I forced the builder. I said, I'm not selling this home to anyone that doesn't list the 2 twin homes with me. So I'll get 2 listing commissions also. So I ended up making over $50,000 in 71 days from the closing. And I was like, I am hooked. I am whipped. This is going to be my life moving forward. This is what I want to do. This is who I am. I want to go find all this stuff. And I want to do as many of these deals as I can. And this is about the center point. If you put a pin in the map on this house and drew a 5-mile radius, I didn't leave that for 10 years. 10 years I didn't leave that space because there's so many deals available. especially on the smaller stuff like this. Now, when I wanted to go bigger, I had to go out, right? But you could literally put a 5-mile radius for the first 10 years of my career. Now, can I teach you something really cool?
Yes.
So I finished this deal. I get my check, and there's 4 checks: commission, commission, lot check, commission. I add them up, and I go into John, and I say, John, do you have a minute? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I got a little problem. He goes, what's that? And I go, remember that deal you sold me? He goes, yeah. I said, you said we could make $15,000. Yeah. I didn't make $15,000, John. You were wrong. And he goes, well, you know, Mike, I was just guessing. I didn't do all the math, and I wasn't sure of all that. I said, you were wrong, John. I didn't make $15,000. I made over $50,000. And I put out copies of the checks in front of him. And I said, John, you're my best friend. You're my best friend. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. I had asked him before, what? Why didn't you do the deal? I didn't ask him that again, but I'm sure his feelings about it were a little different after that, right? Now, the second thing was, I said, John, I want to be your business partner. He goes, yeah, what's that? I go, you listed that house, right? He goes, yeah. I go list a bunch more of them like that. And I'll come in and buy them. You can get the listing commission, I'll get the buying commission, and I'll make the money on the deal. Put her there. Partners. Because all I was thinking about at that time was, how did I find that deal? Right. John. I was dumb enough to think that John was going to be the source of my deals moving forward. I really thought John would be the source of my deals. Instead of what? Do it yourself. Took me a minute to do what? What's the phrase I've said over and over again? Creating my own economy. So I said, John, get your listings out. I want to look at all of them. Let's get a few of them under contract. Let's get going. And John said, what? Well, I kind of got lucky. I just called me. I didn't know him. I just happened to have a lot there, and I was like, so I drove home with these checks in my hand, and I was so upset. I drove from Orem to my house over here in Spanish Fork, and the whole night I was like, you got these checks in your hand. It's more money than I ever made in a year, much less 2 months, right? And I was like, I'm laying in bed, and then the light goes on, and it says what? I asked the city planner, I've got a property in this area over here. What can I do? And he said what? Over there, you can. So I closed my eyes, went right to sleep, woke up the next morning. I was at the city offices when it opened. And I sat down with the city planner and said what? When you told me that I could do this deal, I did it. And you said over there, I could do this deal. Over there, that was allowed. What does over there mean? I don't understand what that means. What does over there mean? I need to do some more of these deals. And he goes, I got to tell you what, Mike, I haven't seen somebody do a deal like that, much less a first-time deal, much less a young guy. Oh my gosh. And I said, well, I'm here to do more. Thank you. So he told me how to use zoning maps. He said, Mike, this zone right here has these uses. And this map right here shows all the zones. And you literally can see what use you want to do on this use chart. You can see what zones they're available in. Then you can literally go to those spots, those colors on the map, and you can find properties that meet the minimum required development standards. So you could do as many as you want. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And my life was different that day forward. What happened? Well, I left there and drove to my title company and said to my title company, what? Who's available? I'm coming to your office right now. We're going to do a ton of business together. They're like, oh, we like that. Come on over. So I came over with the Spanish Fork City zoning map, put it on the desk, and said to them, do you see this color right here? These zones, this is an R2 zone, R2. Here's a pocket, R2, R2. Here's a big swath of R2. I need you to start pulling every property on that has a minimum of what? What was my first ask? 18,000 square feet, because I wasn't very smart, right? 18,000 square feet, because I had 8 and 10. I thought we'll start with 18. So they literally created, and I said, I want you to separate them between vacant lots and built-on lots. So the vacant lots would be more interesting, right? Because I wouldn't have to pay for a house, or wouldn't be a house in the way. So I said, when can you have this? They said, 2 days. Came back 2 days later and I got a farm.
There you go.
I got a farm. That quickly I had a farm. And I was starting my own what?
Economy.
My own economy. I was creating my own economy. I didn't care what John was doing anymore. Was I calling John? Did you find another listing, John? Huh? No, I was the person calling and getting those listings. Because I'd always go in and list it. And then at the same time, they'd literally sign the listing agreement and I'd do what? Pull out a purchase contract. And I'd say, I'm going to buy your property.
Why did you just buy it?
Because I wanted a 6% discount.
Okay.
I'd list it with the commission.
Right.
And I'd put right in the commission, I am a buyer. And one of the reasons you should work with me is I buy a lot of the properties. And this is a fair market value. And this is a 6% commission. And let's go through the terms. Oh, you should write it. You should see how we wrote it up. We papered it up very, very well. Buyer beware. Michael P. Watson is a licensed realtor in the state of Utah and is a limited agent in this transaction. Seller has seen comparables and information that represents the listing value which they have approved of and signed off with Remax. What was the name of the company? Remax Central back then. Buyer is also aware that agent is an investor and may be a buyer in this transaction, at which point seller may elect to have the buyer's broker act on his behalf. So I got in there, full price, 6% reduction. And what did a 6-month listing start looking like to me? So a seller is saying, I'm going to let you try and list this, Wade, and I'm going to give you 6 months to do it. Gosh, that look and felt a lot like I made an offer to them, seller financed with a 6-month balloon. So I started saying to them, we'd sign the listing agreement, and I'd say, hey, how would you like to sell the property today? Yeah, sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you a down payment. I'm going to give you a large earnest money. Here's what I want to do with the property. I told you all about this in your listing agreement. This is what I was going to try to sell to everyone. This is the value that we arrived at. I'd like to do it. I'm just sitting here thinking, why wouldn't I do this? And they've given me 6 months. And I said, how would you like to sell it today? No showings, no open houses, no anything. I'll write you an offer today. We'll sell or finance it. I have a 6-month balloon, so I have to refinance you out at 6 months, which is when your listing would have hopefully paid you off by. And I had a really high success rate with that. A lot of them would do that. So I'd sweeten the pot for them somehow. But anyways, we started down that road with the title company of getting lists and spreadsheets. And I had a partner and an assistant, and we were doing 100 transactions a year, the three of us, while I ran a building company, a property management company, a development company, and a Remax franchise. And I was doing that many transactions a year with 2 people under me. 2. Insatiable work ethic, insatiable desire, insatiable curiosity. So this forced me to create my own economy. This was another example of creating my own economy. Over there. What does over there mean? Guys, people leave clues for you everywhere you go on how to get to the next level, how to be something more, how to grow, how to expand. There are clues everywhere you go. And you're either seeing them or you're not. I did a podcast episode last night. It's not listed yet. The podcast was about what can we learn from the story of Josh Bell. Does anybody know this? Anybody know who Josh Bell is? So Josh Bell is one of the preeminent violinists in the country. He plays a $3.5 million Stradivarius. And he did a study where he went to the Washington, D.C. mass transit metro. And he went in jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball cap, opened up his violin case, and played one of the hardest violin numbers ever written. Perfectly. 3 nights before, he had sold out a theater in Boston to standing ovations and high ticket prices. And he sat there in the metro with this $3.5 million violin, and everyone walked past. Nobody noticed. One person stopped and recognized him, but he wasn't in the right environment. And so people were passing one of the greatest violinists on a world-class instrument with one of the hardest songs to perfect right in front of their eyes. And I started my podcast with that story for the simple fact of what? So many things are happening around you and in front of you, and you're missing it. You're walking right past it. Literally. Real quickly, which one of these things are not like the other? Here, take a look.